Hi, welcome back to the crypto simulation. Today, I'm going to do a general crypto market update focusing on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and different kinds of dominance to determine where we're heading in the next month or two. I've done these before, and I like to just periodically check in and see where things are going. Nothing that I talk about in this video is financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm the Gaussian snake. Snakes can't be financial advisors. Also, be sure to follow me on Telegram at the Snake Pit after you're done watching this video for more of the latest alpha and news regarding crypto. Let's take a look at Bitcoin on the weekly, and you can see that, wow, we have had quite a year of bullishness. I've turned on the Gaussian channel, and you can see that the Gaussian channel right now is very narrow and concave up, and the price looks really bullish. We have just had one leg up after another, and that leads you to wonder, well, after putting in this all-time high and breaking the previous one, what's going to happen next? And what I have drawn here are not simple moving averages. These are known as whole moving averages, or HMAs, and they're a lot more current than SMAs. So SMAs are a little bit lagging, whereas HMAs are much more current based on their mathematical formula. And you can see, and by the way, the HMAs are a lot harder to hold than SMAs. So we are actually underneath the 10-week HMA, which has not happened since January. So it appears that we're in for some kind of cool down, and it looks like we're even struggling just a little bit maybe to hold the 20-week HMA. We've been just getting rejected repeatedly here on the 10, and that's pretty high up right now at 67K, but we did come to the blue one over here in February, which was at a price of around 42 something. So we could extrapolate that the blue one would be up near 60K, and then the white one would be close to 50K. So it's anyone's guess exactly how far down we will go and if we will continue to go down. But let's take a look at what the indicators say. So already seeing that we're underneath the 10-week is making me think that we're going to have an extended cool-off period. But just how severe might this be? Well, to answer that question, we need to look elsewhere first and then come back, circle back to Bitcoin. So this will be kind of like a roundabout journey. But I think we should start with Bitcoin dominance. Take a look at Bitcoin dominance and see what it's telling us. And then look at ETH Bitcoin, look at total 3 divided by Bitcoin and see kind of what that's telling us. That would be the altcoin market. Look at others' dominance. And then we can try to contextualize all of it together, come back to Bitcoin and see if what we've learned about the different kind of dominances and other metrics might provide some clues as to where Bitcoin is likely heading next. Okay, so this is Bitcoin dominance, and I'm using the HMAs here as well. What do you notice? We have been above the 100-week HMA for a very long time until January. And ever since then, we've actually been, the 100-week that was support has now become resistance. That's not a bullish sign. We have been staying above the 20-week and sort of wrestling with the 50-week. But I want you to notice something else. Down here is the Gaussian channel. The Gaussian channel was green and concave up for a while, but it appears to have inflected to concave down. It's hard to see because I feel like it just happened. What happened last time we inflected to concave down? Not great things for dominance. So dominance kind of took a little plunge. I think something like that is going to happen soon, but I have reason to believe that we may still see a little bit more life out of dominance, like a spike up or something, taking us to maybe 56% or somewhere around there. I have a hard time seeing us get up to 59 or 60% right now. I think that could happen later, but I think for now, the most likely path is maybe a short move up and a nice wick down. Now, what makes me think that? Let's look at some indicators. This is the Gaussian ribbon. And you can see that we are actually penetrating the green region and narrowing in the Gaussian ribbon. And I kind of doubt that this is going to close off and, form another green bubble. I don't think so. I think the most likely direction is we're heading down into a bear market for Bitcoin dominance. And there's other indicators that make me think this, but some of these really nice visual ones can be helpful. Looking at the Snabble RSI, we hit close to 95% on this back in October of 2023, and we've fallen sharply since then. You've seen altcoins really start to move ever since that time, and we've been going more or less sideways. In fact, we've been kind of like consolidating almost in this region of 50 to 60% in the Snabble RSI. Note that this does not correspond to dominance values. This is a measure of an EMA, or an exponential moving average. It appears to have some bullish divergence right now. However, I don't really necessarily expect this to shoot off into the stratosphere. It could. It certainly could. But I do expect it to get a bounce. So, my base case for the RSI with dominance is it is starting to curl up, and maybe we'll see one last hurrah, one last move up, and that's it for a while until the next Bitcoin mania run. And the Snabble RSI is one of those things that makes me think that. Another thing that makes me think dominance is experiencing some weakness is the fact that we dip below the Gunnar EMA. The Gunnar EMA is usually something that provides you with a hint of a change in trend. You can see during a bear market, if we go back to dominance's bear market, you tend to stay below the green line of the Gunnar EMA. You can almost think of this as like a bull market support band, very similar kind of concept. And when we're crabbing, we're just kind of chopping around. And then in a bull market, we are mostly above it. And we stay above the green during the strongest parts of the bull market. We're starting to penetrate the red, and we can see it's starting to turn over here. So while we are holding the green line, and I could definitely see us spiking up here, I think this is starting the process of rolling over. Look how weak the parabolic SAR is. We broke through the downtrend SAR that we had at a level of 54.13, so we're technically in a very weak uptrend. Look at the slopes of these. Very steep slope, less steep, even less steep. You can see the weakening bull trend right before your eyes. So invalidation of this would be around the 51% level, meaning that maybe we get a spike up here, but then we crash down, and I would anticipate Bitcoin dominance falls lower than 51% on the drop. One of my favorite indicators, the Trix bubble, and you'll see me use this a few times today. This is a really good way to tell when you have, a change in trend from bullish to bearish. What do you notice? Bitcoin dominance, the peaks of these are shorter time frame moving averages. So this is the 5-week, 7-week, 9-week, 11-week, and 14-week all stacked up on top of each other. We got pretty high in June of 2022. Remember that? That was the altcoin reckoning, the first altcoin reckoning. There were several of them. And then we had some, relief rally by altcoins, which kind of tanked Bitcoin dominance. And then Bitcoin dominance just pretty much went straight up all the way from August of 2022 to April of 2023. And then it would have moments where it dipped, only to come back up in June of 2023. Altcoin reckoning, dip back down, come back up. What do you notice? Lower highs, right? Lower highs and lower lows. Now this technically is a double bottom, which is bullish. And that's why I think we are going to see a little bit of strength out of Bitcoin dominance coming soon, very, very soon. As a matter of fact, I don't think it's going to be that long from now at all. Could be as early as this coming week. I mean, it's going to be April very soon, and the halving is super close by. So I do think that Bitcoin dominance is about to show some strength. But this, to me, is just very short term. This is the wave trend oscillator, and this is not an indicator I think I've shown you. Maybe I might have talked about it once, but when it forms these green dots, that's very bullish. That means a change in trend towards the bull trend is very likely. The red dots, as you can see in the past, are quite bearish. Well, folks, we did not just print 1 or 2, we printed 5 red dots, okay? And every time we printed one of these, we did go down, and it looks like we're trying to test this region yet again. I think there's a chance we get up to it, but folks, I think that's it. After that, I think we're heading down. This is, I just think we are. I mean, the momentum looks like it's weakening. And so on the wave trend analysis, you can really see the weakness starting to show up for dominance. And this is what makes me think it is medium term to, I'd say medium term bearish, to even long term bearish. I do think that dominance will get another hurrah, last hurrah if Bitcoin goes in on another run later this year, like it usually does. But that tends to be like a dead cat bounce. Just for fun, I've got the weighted logarithmic Bollinger Bands turned on, and you can even see that we're starting to slice through a little bit more, kind of like we saw on the Gunnar EMAs. So what would cause Bitcoin dominance to go up really sharply, and what would cause it to fall? So, we're kind of like telling a story here of the market. What would cause it to go up really fast would be either a Bitcoin pump or a Bitcoin dump. Either one will cause it to go up, especially if it's a volatile move. So we do need to answer that question. Is Bitcoin about to pump hard, or is it about to dump? This is Ethereum Bitcoin, and I've left up a drawing that I put in one of my previous videos just to show you the path has played out that I've been projecting, which is that, think of this as one big, drop. It almost looks like an M, and Ethereum Bitcoin looks really bearish. Now, I believe that Ethereum Bitcoin is destined for this region here. I think 0.04 Bitcoin could prove to be a resilient area of support and a nice bottoming region. That would be kind of my base case, but it is possible we could dip to 0.035. It's possible. Okay. Anything's possible. I don't think that we're at the bottom now. We have broken a very long-term trend line dating back many years. So that is significant. So what is going to knock Ethereum Bitcoin off of this support even further to where it's not even going to, it's possible Ethereum Bitcoin tries to backtest, but I just think Ethereum Bitcoin looks horrible right here. And it's not just the weighted Bollinger Bands that are making me think that. You can see that we've been just down, 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 and we're doing the choppy thing, but Bollinger Bands are opening to the downside. And why is that? What would cause ETH Bitcoin to capitulate really fast and form a bottoming process in, late April, or maybe even early to mid-April, just depending on when this dump, that I'm predicting happens with Bitcoin, which I'm giving you the answer right now. But I think, obviously, that I'll explain and, give my rationale for it as we go through this video. But yeah, what's going to cause that? And I think it's going to be a sharp drop by Bitcoin, because as you can see, since Bitcoin's been putting in these highs, it's affected ETH Bitcoin. ETH Bitcoin has gone down. But the only way I could see ETH Bitcoin really capitulating is if Bitcoin were to take off to like 150K or something absolutely insane. Then I could see that breaking Ethereum down against Bitcoin. But Bitcoin doesn't have the steam to do that right now, and I can prove that to you with indicators. Again, with the caveat that anything's possible. It's just very, very improbable. What about this looks healthy? Nothing. Nothing at all. Gaussian channel is tight, and it's red, and it's concave down. Now, it does look like it's getting near an inflection point. And so I think this is the final dump by Ethereum against Bitcoin. Whatever's coming up now, and I'm expecting a move kind of like this. This is what I'm expecting, something like that. And the only way that happens is, and I think it might even be quicker than this. But the only way that happens is with a Bitcoin dump, not a pump, unless the pump is insane. And so these are the HMAs, and we're below all of them right now. So you really don't get much more bearish than that. You looked at my previous video where I did a market cycle update. I talked about Tether dominance, which is a leading stable coin. It just went absolutely capitulation mode in, looks like it was September when it started to just roll over. And yeah, it got down pretty far. And now it appears to be in some kind of relief rally, potentially. So I am noticing this little bull shape here, which does look short-term bullish. Let's take a look at some of the other technicals for USDT dominance. So you see this green line here, that's the Gunnar EMA. And so USDT dominance is in a bear market. It is below all of its key whole moving averages. Now, when you get this underextended, I'm thinking it's probably even down by the 300 week. I don't have that pictured here, but when you get this underextended, you're due for some mean reversion. So in every bear market, nothing goes straight down. So I'm thinking we're going to probably get a leg up by USDT dominance. And that's why we're actually seeing a little bit of weakness in the market right now. You notice things aren't performing as well, especially Bitcoin, right, as it has been. And I think that's because USDT dominance is having a little relief rally. Not surprising at all when you look at the RSI and the stochastic RSI. Stochastic RSI is putting in a double bottom, and it's actually trending up. And RSI is about as low as it's been potentially ever. So yeah, I think we're due for some mean reversion for sure, and I can't tell you exactly how that's going to materialize, but it's very unlikely we're going to stay down here for very long. I think USDT dominance is going to get a nice relief rally. By the way, I misspoke. These are not the whole moving averages. I meant to put those on. These are the SMAs. Let's put on the whole moving average. These are simple moving averages, which are a little bit lagging. I mean, not that it would look any better. It doesn't. But you can see that we are fighting to get above the 10 week, where if I zoom in, you can get a clearer picture of this bearishness. It's just straight down, folks. But look, we are getting some relief, right? That's what this is, a relief rally. You see, in a relief rally, you can get back above a 10-week whole moving average just to fall right back down again, which is my expectation with USDT dominance. I do not think that this is a macro bottom. And if it is a macro bottom and we do go up, I think at the very least we'll be putting in a higher low later on in the year. So it is possible to bottom. I shouldn't say it isn't, because it could be. USDT dominance has broken a long-term trend line. We are very underextended. We're overextended from our breakout at this point. Percentage-wise, I didn't look at this earlier, but we've fallen quite a bit, 54%. Holy smokes. That's a huge drop for Tether dominance, for stablecoin dominance. So we're probably not far off from finding a bottom with this, if I had to guess. So yeah, I mean, it's a possibility we get a nice relief rally. Maybe we put in a slightly lower low, or maybe even a double bottom. Who knows? Okay, now what you're looking at here is the altcoin market minus stable coins versus Bitcoin. So we're looking at the relative strength of the altcoin market compared to how it holds up against Bitcoin. We've just gone through a brutal bear market with it, but you can see we are holding this trend line. And in fact, the 100-week, and these are whole moving averages, HMAs, is starting to curl back around. And we're actually above all the key moving averages. We've been very choppy, and this looks like an accumulation range to me. So I'm not too concerned about us breaking this trend line, even on a Bitcoin dump. And if we did, I think it at worst would be a fake out. I'm making a pretty bold claim. Let me explain some further justifications behind why I believe that the bear market for altcoins against Bitcoins is over. I should note that this trend line is very strong. Even during the COVID drop, we didn't break it. And here we are testing it again. Doesn't mean it won't, that we won't break it. We could break it. But what I'm noticing here is here's the red Gaussian channel. It's inflected concave up. That's significant. Now, there's no guarantee it stays concave up, but this has been in a bear market for a very long time, and this looks like a pretty convincing triple bottom to me. We are heading into the lower red region of the Gaussian channel, and this is where you expect to see a change in trend start to materialize. And we are at that time in the cycle where you would expect, just like here we had chop, chop, chop down, we have chop, chop, chop. I'm expecting a break up to happen soon. But you have to think to yourself, well, what would cause that breakup, right? What would cause this to go up? We know that Tether dominance is heading up right now, so that's kind of a point for the bears for Bitcoin. But what would cause altcoin market to start to outperform Bitcoin? Bitcoin has to start chopping around and getting boring, but still showing enough strength to be in a bull market. And so, again, I think Bitcoin has to break down and find a floor somewhere. And I'm telling you, I think $50,000 is a good floor for it. And I'll justify that soon. But what I'm noticing here is that we're slamming into the red Gaussian channel when it's concave up. And I want to show you, when this happens, this tends to be a very bullish thing for whatever asset is doing this. In fact, this exact same thing happened to Bitcoin itself coming out of its bear market. Let me show you. This is Bitcoin on the weekly. We will be coming back to this again later. Look at what happened. We bottomed out in December. We approached the Gaussian channel. Notice that it's concave up in red. And when you start getting into this region, when it's concave up, that's generally a very bullish thing. And you can kind of anticipate that you're going to probably more likely to not blast through it. And that's exactly what happened. We held the median line of the Gaussian channel of support. We came back and tested it again. I'm actually seeing Chainlink do this right now. And then after that, boom, just off. I'm going to show you Chainlink just to show you another example of this happening. When you're concave up, boom. So beginning of bull market. Here's Link against the US dollar. It literally walked right into its red Gaussian channel when it was concave up and red, and then blast off, right? Blast off. This is a pattern I've seen play out over and over again. I'm going to highlight it here. This reminds me of what's going on, what happened with Bitcoin during its accumulation phase. This is Link Bitcoin. And you can see that our Gaussian channel was red, and every time we tested a red Gaussian channel when it was concave down, it wasn't a good thing, right? We would get rejected, sometimes very harshly. And then we tried to tackle it again. It looked like it was inflecting, but that was a very tricky fake out. The bear market just hadn't been going on for long enough at that point. And then we came back down and put in a lower low, and that appears to have been the bottom. But look at right now, we did the same thing. We crashed into a Gaussian channel when it was concave up. And also when the bear market had been going on for a very long time. This is a pretty convincing double bottom. And then we put in this like double top, because I think this is an accumulation range for Link against Bitcoin. And look at how we're testing the green Gaussian. Now this video isn't intended to be about Link Bitcoin. I don't really like that it got below this trend line. That is a little worrisome. So I'm kind of hoping it can show some strength, and come up, because I don't want to see this like flip back over again. But yeah, Link Bitcoin's a little more wobbly, but Link USD, I mean, it looks great. Yet another example of something that looks strong is Others dominance. Others dominance, for those of you who don't know, is the dominance of the top of a certain number of altcoins. I don't know if it's 250 altcoins or more than that. TradingView's been adding more and more, excluding, so not including the top 10 altcoins. And you can see that altcoin dominance, Others dominance, has just been in this like long-term uptrend. It has held this trend line on 3 taps. And it survived its bear market, which started out here somewhere, I think in January of 2022. It put in a nice convincing bottom in June of 2023. And I remember the day that it did that very well. And then look where it went, right into its red concave up Gaussian channel. Notice a pattern here? And not only that, but it tested the green Gaussian channel in March of 2024 and held it as support. We're still in March for another couple days, and it's heading back up again. So could this come back down? Absolutely. In fact, I would anticipate that that's likely to happen if Bitcoin goes on, a nice little dump. I do think that Others dominance will have a pullback, but then I think it's off to the races. So I'm going to come back to Others dominance, because this is what I really want to focus on. But before, I want to convince you why I believe that Bitcoin is in for a pretty nasty correction right now. If you were just staring at the chart, you wouldn't know it. You'd be like, oh, Bitcoin looks great, up only. Gaussian channel is green and, tight and concave up. So why are you saying it's going to correct possibly to $50,000? I'm not just pulling this number out of thin air. Let me explain. I showed you earlier what the whole moving average is, right? But I wanted to look at the Gaussian ribbon. Gaussian ribbon looks pretty good. We did tap it briefly here in January, and we haven't tapped it since. Now, unless we're in some kind of prolonged mania phase heading into a major top, which we could be, then, and that would completely invalidate everything I'm telling you as far as Bitcoin price goes, and it is a risk. As long as we're not in one of these prolonged mania phases, and, that things are in fact cooling off, there is a chance that we come back to test this. And the ribbon by then will be, somewhere just north of $50,000. So you have to look under the hood to see the cracks. So Bitcoin got into the very overbought region right here in, it looks like December of 2023, and it tried to retest the overbought region, but actually got rejected. So while I do anticipate that we may put in a higher low to keep the bull structure intact, I think we're going to drop. I do think we're going to drop a little bit into oversold territory. The oversold line has gone up, as it usually does in bull markets, as you can see. Did this in 2013. it was a little bit more choppy throughout, from 2015 onward, but you can see that we've really been in a clear uptrend with this. But it does look like we have some bullish divergence. Okay, so there's a little bit of bullish divergence, but my expectation is that this ultimately rolls over. We have spent a lot of time in the overbought region. In fact, we're still there, but we're potentially forming, this is on the Snabble RSI, we're potentially forming a head and shoulders pattern. Now, we would need this to come down for the shoulder to complete, but this does look kind of bearish. Look at the first time in December, we got all the way up to like 97, which is really on par with previous times where we've maxed out or still kept maxed out our RSI. I mean, we hit this level in January of 2021. We hit this level in May of 2019. So this is a pretty significant level that we're up at, and we're getting a second top, which is not uncommon in March of 2024. Our expectation, however, is that for the rest of the bull market, this will probably start to trend down and turn bearish. And just because the RSI turns bearish does not mean you're in a bear market. You only enter in a bear market, really, like, it takes a while, right? So you need to have a sustained downtrend. And, like, you can see kind of what happens here is this was the summer lull where we actually went down like very rapidly, which is quite uncommon to do that. But it can happen where it comes down super rapidly like this. This probably happened in 2013 too, if I had to guess. Yeah, heading into at least, this is 2011, we came down. So I'm trying to find that top. Where is it? April 2013. Yep, see, same thing. We came down and came back up. So I can't tell you exactly if that's what's about to happen. I mean, we did have a pretty big drop after December into January, and we got practically, all the way down here. But this is not a bullish looking formation. So I'm anticipating a drop. What would cause Snabble RSI to drop is a Bitcoin price drop. The clues are everywhere. Here's the ADX and DI. You can see what's happened at previous peaks in March of 2021. This is momentum, right? So the ADX is the trend strength, and you can see that we hit peak trend strength. We were already kind of on our way down, but we hit it in March of 2021, which is our first major top of the cycle. We also hit it in August 2019, which was very close to the major top of that bull bounce. And going back even further, see if I can find it here. We hit a major top in February of 2017, which was less than a year away from the end top of the cycle. We hit it in April 2013. So you tend to hit major maximum momentum 6 to 8 months before your bull cycle is done. So it looks like we've achieved that top in March, which would kind of correspond to April of 2013. I think it was it like May of 2017, August of 2019, and March of 2021. I don't know if I have all those dates right, but these were significant moments where Bitcoin had exhausted its maximum return on investment, or ROI, from market cycle bottom. Meaning that the peak that came next, like in November, for instance, or the peak that came after the April peak in November of 2013, was not as significant. Even though it was a higher price, it wasn't as significant in terms of return on investment, right? If you had bought from the dip of the first top into whatever that dip was, and then you rode it up to 69K, or you rode it up to whatever the price was in November of 2013, the multiples that you would make on that investment were not as significant as the multiples that you would make coming out of the bear market. So it appears like we're kinking here and very likely forming a top. And generally speaking, whenever this has happened and we slide back down, we can sometimes see a reversal in momentum, and we start to see less bullishness as the cycle progresses, with spikes on the green DI. And the spikes on the green DI are the bullish moves when they spike upwards, but you can see that this is where more and more bearishness starts to enter in. And look, at bearishness looks like it has double bottomed. So it seems like the bearishness is going to start to creep in and the bullishness is going to start to fade. That doesn't mean the bull market's over. It just means this is the middle of the bull market, and now we're entering into the later stages of it, where we're likely to see trips down and it looks like we're about to kink our way down and have our first major drop of the bull market. And then we'll have a spike up again, and it'll be a lower high most likely. This is kind of what I'm anticipating. This is the average sentiment oscillator. And you can see that this peaked in January of 2021. It had another peak in February of 2021 and another peak in April of 2021. Similar to the ADX and DI, when you have divergence, when the green is furthest away from the red and the green is above the red, that is bullish, and it's trending upwards. When the red is above the green and the red is trending upwards, that is bearish. It's also bearish when the green starts to fall down towards the red as the red moves up. These move inversely to each other. So you can see kind of how the bull market starts to deteriorate after maximum bullish momentum has been achieved. On the ASO, that momentum was achieved in January of 2021. It is possible and very likely that our maximum bullish momentum was already achieved in December of 2023, and we're about to put in a second peak here on our ultimate trip back down. We have to also consider that something like what happened from 2016 to 2017 is a possibility where we triple top on the ASO. Okay, so I'm not going to throw that out. This does look bullish, but we don't really know exactly where this kink's going to go next. Do you remember that tricks bubble that I talked about earlier? The triple exponential moving averages. So you've got your 5-week EMA, 7-week EMA, 9-week, 11-week, and 14-week in black, which you can barely see. I should probably change the color on that, but I keep forgetting. Anytime you get a maximum value occurring here, that usually results in a trip down. Now, sometimes you can make that trip down like we did in February and then just go right back up, but ultimately we fell. And generally when you're down at these levels, that's when you expect a reversal, only to slice back through again like we did in January. We had a correction in January. Now, during bear markets, this is pretty dramatic. You're putting in, during a bear market, it's a series of lower highs and lower lows for the most part. It's until you get out, Actually, no, wait, this is not a bear market, this is a bull market. What am I talking about? So, oh yeah, because this was a summer lull. This was that weird case. So you had January 2021, maximum bullish momentum. February 2021, losing the bullish momentum. And then there's your slice through, pretty dramatic drop. And you can see here, we've been grinding higher, and the momentum is nothing like what we saw earlier in the previous cycle because you do have diminishing returns. But yeah, we are starting to see this roll over. And so this does get me thinking, like the last time this rolled over was on December 4th. And then you remember what happened when we crossed into January, we had a little bit of a drop. Now, the question is, are we going to just put in a higher low? Well, that if that happens, I don't think our drop necessarily has to be that dramatic. But and I honestly don't know how far Bitcoin has to drop to break Ethereum Bitcoin off of where it's at, because Ethereum Bitcoin's already broken off of its support. It's got nowhere to go but down at this point. So, I think it's hard to predict exactly what price Bitcoin's going to go to. My gut tells me like around 50K. And I might be being just a little bit too dramatic with that. We'll have to see, because we can't know what we don't know. What we do know is this is all concave down, and a correction looks like it's imminent here. So for the parabolic uptrend to be invalidated, you can see we've had a pretty nice parabolic leg here, one here, although admittedly nothing like this. But to invalidate this, we would need to break 51,39475. That would invalidate the uptrend and create a new downtrend, and you'd start to see dots appearing above the graph, which would indicate we have like these kind of dots are like downtrend dots on the SAR. So the fact that these are getting spaced further apart is usually a sign that this is losing steam. So I am expecting this to roll over, and so this is one of the reasons why I think that $50,000 level makes sense. If you just look at this in terms of fibs, you can see we're really struggling with this one. The one fib, we're struggling with it. There's not a lot of volume support in this region. There's enough to kind of make us struggle here for a little bit, but I think it should be a fairly quick trip down. Where I'm seeing a lot more volume support is right here at 50K. So 50K to me, look, we held, this is kind of our breakout point. So if we, I mean, look, we could hold 58K. We could even hold 60K. That is possible. We could just grind sideways into it. But I feel like for Bitcoin to really knock Ethereum off of its support, we need to see a pretty violent drop. Violent, of course, in Bitcoin, $60,000, $70,000 Bitcoin is not really as much as you've seen in previous downturns because of diminishing volatility, right? To the downside as well. So it is possible. I would expect us to maybe encounter some resistance here at 58K. It's possible. Or we could just slice right through it like we did on the way up. I don't think we will, though. We're in a bull market. So I think there would be a fight here. And you can see when we wicked down to 59K, that wick was bought up right away. But we are struggling to, with this 1.0 fib. So my best bet is that this thing just pushes us down. Maybe we spend some time building support out at 58, but you can see this is thin support on the VRVP. You really only have strong support now in the $45,000 to $50,000 region, and this is why I was giving targets of 45 to 50,000 in my previous videos. That this region does have some significant support, and I think that at the very least, a revisiting of the 0.786 fib makes sense at this stage. So this, in conclusion, is my, this is my sort of my thesis going forward. And if I end up being wrong on this, that's okay. I mean, I'm just doing my best to put the data together to build a story that makes sense. Remember that technical analysis is based on probabilities and my interpretation of them. So don't take this to the bank. You should be careful about acting on my technical analysis. You should look at the data for yourself, weigh it against what I'm saying, and see if it makes sense. So here's my thesis on a series of events likely to play out between now and the halving based on a detailed analysis of Bitcoin dominance, ETH Bitcoin, Tether dominance, and total 3 minus USDT divided by Bitcoin. I do have a full explanation also in my Telegram group that I mentioned earlier in my alerts channel. Bitcoin gets a massive drop. By massive, I mean we could end up down in the 50K range from where we are now. And I think that it's likely to play out relatively soon, possibly before the halving. And I feel like it's going to feel like it came out of nowhere. And I think that you could see some down wicks getting bought up pretty quickly. But I think that Bitcoin's probably going to settle down somewhere lower than it has before. And I think we're going to be range bound. What that range is, it could be 50 to 70K. I have no idea, but I think we're going to end up being range bound. And that is, after that happens, as that's happening, I think this massive and quick drop by Bitcoin will knock Ethereum Bitcoin down to the depths around 0.04 Bitcoin. And I think that is where ETH Bitcoin will bottom. As this happens, we would see a temporary resurgence in Bitcoin dominance, and we might see others' dominance take a little hit. We might see total 3 minus stables divided by Bitcoin also take a slight hit, and we might see USDT dominance take a little spike up. Bitcoin stabilizes rather quickly and begins its long journey to another all-time high later in the year, kind of like the November 2021 top or like the November 2013 top. That's kind of my base case. I'm not saying it's going to top in November, by the way. It could top earlier than that or later, but I'm just saying like this is the general thing. Now, the thing I'm most excited about is from what I showed you earlier about, remember, others' dominance and total 3 minus USDT divided by Bitcoin, or the altcoin market divided by Bitcoin. I think altcoins are going to rally hard after the halving. And when Bitcoin starts to crab around and doesn't do anything that exciting, Bitcoin dominance falls. And you can already see, if you know what to look for, you can already see it kind of happening. You can see these events happening before they actually occur, because of what the wave trends are telling us. I'm a momentum analyst, so I look at how the waves are moving. This is just probabilities. I think there's a high chance this happens. I will be surprised if it doesn't, but if it doesn't, it's a learning opportunity for me. And I certainly welcome critical feedback on my thesis, and you can leave that in the comments. Come to my Telegram group, as long as you're respectful about it. I'm cool with it. Just tell me what you think, and I'm happy to have a discussion. We have about 175 people in the Telegram, so you can get their perspective, my perspective, and we can learn from each other. So yeah, that's just kind of my, I wrote this at 5:17 Pacific Standard Time tonight, and actually it'll be last night. It's already the next day, but just to kind of like show you where my head is at. It's not altcoin season right now. You can see that we actually had a head and shoulders on altcoin season that occurred. It looks like, I don't know what date this is. I have to scroll down to see it. The head and shoulders seems to have occurred in January of 2024. Oh, so just 2 months ago. Interesting. So we actually did have an altcoin season. This was a very big altcoin season. And these things can be spaced apart pretty far. I mean, the last altcoin season before that was in late 2022. We had an altcoin season in January of 2022. We had a massive altcoin season, April through June before that. And I think what we just experienced might have been like that at the, maybe. So what am I expecting to happen here? Now, this is bearish, of course. So I do think altcoin season index is gonna bottom out, but I don't think we'll necessarily get all the way down to Bitcoin season. In fact, I don't think we will. I think we'll find a floor somewhere in here in April and then start the grind higher. I don't think we're just spiking up here right away. You can see from past altcoin seasons, they are spaced apart quite a bit, right? This was August of 2020. This was April of 2021. We could see something like this certainly play out. December 19 to February 2020, it was just a few months apart. So maybe that's an inverse head and shoulders, by the way. March 2019, April 2019, we had a little bit of an altcoin season. We had a massive altcoin season in the beginning of 2018, and 2017 was just kind of like altcoin season forever. You can see, but these do get spaced out further and further. But we don't necessarily have to come all the way down to have a resurgence. We had a brief moment on March 6th where we were in altcoin season technically. So, maybe we carve out some kind of bottom heading into, late April, and then in May, maybe we start to see a move back up. I expect the summer to be hot for altcoins. The late spring, early summer, that's my expectation. But wow, look at this. We were in Bitcoin season in October. Look how fast we went from Bitcoin season to altcoin season, just like that fast. But altcoins are moving like crazy on the way up, right? And we had a bounce. So altcoins have been doing really well. So we may enter into a quiet period for altcoins and weakness for Bitcoin. It's possible that this drop by Bitcoin isn't as fast and swift as I'm making it out to be. I mean, it could be, we can feel pain in the markets for a little while, but I do think that altcoins will find some kind of bottom and then make their way back up towards the summer into a nice altcoin season. And you'll start feeling the moves as we curl back around. So that's kind of my anticipation, what I'm thinking. You've got my thoughts. You don't have to agree with them. If you have a different argument and you think that we're, this was it and we're heading back down into the depths of Bitcoin season, just make a case to me why you think that, that is the case. What's happened before when we've, certainly in late 2022, that this was in the bear market, but that was it, right? But in the bull market, like in 2021, we spent a lot of time up here. We didn't quite make it up there again all the way until January, just to review this, right? But, when we did get into an August of 2020, we exited altcoin season, it looks like, in September of 2020, and then we got back up into it about 6 months later. So if it takes about 6 months or, so from this top, and let's say, in January, then we would expect to be back up in altcoin season, possibly as early as June or late May or something, so maybe that's the time when Ethereum and things like Polygon and Arbitrum and some of those Ethereum based altcoins really start to run, like May, June timeline. That's kind of my expectation. I've said this in one, you can go back to my first video on ETH Bitcoin, and I did sort of project that May, June timeline would be where we could see some real strength. Can't predict exactly when it's going to happen, but those are my thoughts. Thanks for joining me today in the crypto simulation. I am a Gaussian snake, and you can follow me on my Telegram at the Snake Pit. Just check the links in the video description or in my bio. I also have on Twitter, also on TikTok occasionally. Nothing that I talked about in this video is financial advice. This is just purely educational content, and you are to do with it as you please. I would suggest you do your own research, form your own conclusions, and just use my perspective as one of several that you're considering, because my perspective could very well be right or it could very well be wrong. And how you act on that is your responsibility. So I hope that you learned a lot about what I think about Bitcoin and where it's going and the rest of the market. And we can come back and revisit this in a few months. I'll probably revisit it before then, but we can revisit it, periodically and see kind of how accurately our predictions have turned out to be. So that's about it for tonight, and I'll see you again next time. Bye now.